Well, hello, everybody. I'm Kari the Mortician, and this is a spontaneous live coffee with Kari, even though I'm not drinking coffee right now. I'm having a bubbly, sparkling water. But I just got off a live video with and chat with my Patreon members who get to do 2 special live chats with me a month. So if you want to get in on that, go over to Patreon to Kari the Mortician and sign up. Hey, Susan. Hey, Dream. Good. I'm doing good, Dream. Thank you. So wanted to jump on and just do a little live chat with you guys. I'm sure I'll have a different group of people that are not my usual coffee with Kari just because it's different time of the day. So that's fun when I can do like an afternoon and stuff. Hey, everybody. Yay, Mike. So welcome. Yeah. Hey, JW, we're into evening. It's evening now here. So, all right, I'm going to dive into questions because I'm not going to do quite as long of one today. So first question, do I ever wish I could use embalming tools for other tasks in my everyday life? For instance, if you feel bloated and wish you could Trokar yourself. Well, I don't know that I would do that, but I have had people ask, could you do the Trokar kind of like a liposuction? Essentially, I think it's the same thing. Liposuction is a much smaller, where's that accent come from? A lot smaller of a tube, where a Trokar is going to be a little bit bigger. And so you're not, creating as big a channels, but it's essentially the same thing that you're doing, but you're going to not dive into the muscle. You're staying right up in the fascia and that fat to pull that out when you're liposuctioning. I can't even talk tonight. This is why I don't maybe do videos in the afternoon. Nathan saying, does the body always get moved feet first? Not always. It really depends on the director. Some directors are really steadfast and always going one direction when they're moving individuals. Some people just kind of go whichever way. When you're going into a church, you're supposed to go feet in and then feet out. If it's a parishioner, if it's the pastor or the clergy, you go head in, head out. So it just depends. How can family be involved with the funeral? Meaning what, Dream? I guess, what are you asking with that? Has anyone ever requested to be buried naked? Yes. I have never done it. I did have somebody want their significant other buried naked because that's how they liked them. But we didn't do it. I said, I really am not going to do that for a public viewing. But being cremated naked, I would have no problem with if that's what they wanted. When somebody dies and the funeral cannot be held for several weeks, how is the deceased stored from the time of death to the date of funeral? They'd be embalmed, a lot of maybe cream on their face, and just put in the corner. Some people will put them back into like a cold storage if they have cold storage, but everybody doesn't have that. But typically they just be, placed over to the side. And if you know that going into the embalming, you would really make sure you use strong fluids and preserved them as good as you could. Will you do a video on how mausoleums are built? Possibly if I know one's maybe being built somewhere. I'd really like if I'm showing one in building form so we can kind of see the inside of how it's getting put together. So it'll have to be a right place, right time sort of thing so I can do it well. Have I had any families request the tattoos of the decedent be removed? I think that's pretty cool that they do, considering some of these states these days are expensive, or stats these days. Yeah, tattoos are expensive. I want to go get my first tattoo soon. So that's fun. But I have not had anybody. I've had people talk about it, but not actually asked to have it done. There was a really interesting article. I'm trying to think where I saw it recently about that process and some people that did it. It was a really cool story. I've been in contact with one company that does it, and they don't talk about their process. They won't, because it's such a new thing that they don't want their process kind of out there for other people to use. But I'm sure at some point I'll do a video on it. Does Rigor set in the same if the deceased was submerged in water? the water temperature is maybe going to affect it a little bit, but it's the body breaking down, and it's just part of that happening. So temperature is going to adjust that because of the breakdown of the body. But just the fact of submersion in water, it's going to depend where the water is, how cold it is, if it's warm, all of those factors. Did you hear they legalized the human composting in Washington? Yes. It just, I think, opened up a week ago. I saw that it finally opened. Yeah, eventually I'm sure I will go visit there. I will reach out to them at some point and try to go visit there. So if I went and visited every place I want to visit, I would never be home. Never be home, guys. I have so many places I want to go and do videos. So eventually I will get there. Situation. You get to the body the morning of the viewing before the funeral, and the body has tissue gas. What do? It depends on how it's presenting. So tissue gas is essentially that you get this gas under the tissue on the deceased, and basically the body is decomposing super, super, super fast. The skin is sloughing off and things are changing. It just goes to crap really fast, guys. And it can happen literally in the blink of an eye. If it is the morning of the viewing, I would see if it could be controlled. I would get some dry ice really quick maybe and put on the abdomen if that might help. If it's like 20 minutes before we're going, it's go time, then it might be too late. But I might try re-aspirating, doing what I can. It depends on if it's in areas that are showing or if it's just a purge issue. So it really depends on how it's presenting. Can someone buy a plot in the natural burial of the cemetery, dig the grave, place the deceased, and bury the deceased? No funeral home involved. No, not in every state. Like in Michigan, you cannot do that. A funeral director has to be involved in the burial of someone. We have to be there overseeing that burial for it to be legal. What kind of tattoo? Me? It's going to be a phrase. I'll let you guys know when I get it. I'm sure I'll post pictures. I'll show you guys. So nothing like radical. I'm not getting a full sleeve or anything right now. I'm ready to see that huge mausoleum at Bellefontaine Cemetery once it's finished. Oh, it's ginormous. Who is that? It's not Bel Air Tires or Bell Tire. Who was that, JW? Is it a hotel, or I'm trying to think what company it was, the family that owned it. Do you remember? Have you ever seen an old grave with an escape hatch on it for when people... I have not seen one that has like a cage or that has a bell. I've seen people post pictures of that. I need to go out to some much older cemetery areas, like out east or some places down south, I think, to run into some of that. So I need to find some of those. I think that would be cool. Yeah, you can dig a grave if the cemetery allows it. So as Yolanda's saying, her husband dug his grandma's grave at a cemetery. I have had family go out and help dig the grave, but they need to oversee because it has to meet specific, has to be in the right place, because there's not a lot of margin. If you look down in the hole from the vaults, there's this much room. I'm talking like inches, like 3 inches between the vaults. So it's not like there's a large room for error when it comes to digging those graves. So you have to make sure you're spot on to where you're digging. Have you taken care of many children that have committed suicide due to bullying? Often we don't sometimes get the full story, and the full story doesn't come out until after we've cared for the individual. Whether it's defined as bullying or not, broken love is one of the biggest reasons that somebody got dumped, or to get back at somebody that maybe broke up with you, they've committed suicide or killed themselves after a dance that somebody didn't dance with them, all sorts of reasons like that. Just that is one of the biggest that I feel like we see, or something that's trending. You see other people that kill themselves and they get attention. So then you think you want some attention because you feel like nobody sees you. And then that's why they do it. Teenage suicide is just horrible in children because it's such a cry for help they don't realize is forever. It's just tragic for so many reasons. I should get a tattoo that says you don't know what you don't know. I don't know if I'm that committed to that phrase for my life. I would put it on my body. I mean, it's taken me this many years to get to the point of getting one thing. I'm sure once I get one, I'll want to get a second. That's what everybody says, right? Like they're kind of addicting. But I go to a Catholic college on the grounds of a still functioning monastery. There's a cemetery on campus where the monks are buried when they die. Such a cool place. When I went to the Trappist Casket Company, looking into how they care for the monks when they die and things was really fascinating. Kind of just how it's all done and the hands-on with their own brother and is really cool. If a family does not pick up a loved one's ashes, what happens to the ashes? To the cremated remains. So it depends on the contract. So when a family signs a contract, if a funeral home puts in there that after so many days, if they're not picked up from the funeral home, then the funeral home has the authority that they can dispose of the person's cremated remains. Typically, it means a large mass burial of cremated remains that they may do every 2 years or something at a cemetery that donates this space. So however they get it set up, that's what they may do. But sometimes there's the contracts don't say that, and you end up with rooms and shelves and stashes of cremated remains that have been there for 50 years because nobody picks them up. Just saying hi. Hi guys. Hi Michael. If you ever want to see a mausoleum or acres of monuments, go to Batesville, Indiana. Yeah, Dennis, they do not allow outside people to come and video inside their facility. So I've tried, but I'll have to go to do another casket company. The Drurys. Yeah, JW, I might have to come back and do a video. Seriously, guys, this mausoleum that JW is talking about down in St. Louis is insanely huge, and it's going to drive me nuts. I can't remember what company it was that the people belong to. Can you still detect COVID even after cremation? No, just like most any virus, it's eradicated with the heat levels that are used. My sis was mean and threw my dad's ashes on my brother's grave instead of burying him. So she sprinkled him on there. Only if she had permission of the cemetery, which most cemeteries do not allow you to come and sprinkle them because they want to charge you for placing cremated remains there. Have you ever had to step in and help control the bad behavior of a loved one? Talking, yeah, not in a big way. Usually the family handles that stuff and someone steps in and handles the family. I'm not going to put myself in the middle of situations, but family will usually, or friends will usually jump in and kind of take care of it. So I went and do not ink my face. No worries. I'm not going to Post Malone myself. Props to him, but I will not be doing that. Okay, so Yolanda, you went and picked up some of his cremated remains and took them home. I think that's nice. Have you ever had a request to bury a body in a costume? I did not work the service, but we've had clowns that, wanted to be buried dressed in their costume. Not really anything else. Is there any danger to that person exposed to the embalming fluid? No, I really don't think so. It's not like seeping out their pores that you're wiping it up and then wiping it on yourself. Do you agree with what LA, I believe, did with the emissions or air quality control lifting the limits on cremation, if I have that right? Yeah, so they had because of the smog stuff, they had a ban on how many times they could cremate a day. And so they were getting a huge backlog because they were running at max capacity and they were only able to process so many deceased a day, and they have so many backlogged. So they lifted that so that they could run the retorts longer and get more cremations done. Definitely necessary. Unfortunately, it has to be done right now in order to process everybody that's dying there. So it was definitely necessary. Did the clowns have full clown makeup? I believe they did. I wasn't there, but from what I heard, it was kind of traditional. And I don't know if the funeral director did it or if somebody else came in and special did it. I would be really I think I would be nervous to do a full clown, like I would do it wrong if somebody else had always done it for them or something. Where is my list? What about Trokar buttons? Can you explain what they are and how they're used? I do have, I think, a 2-minute on Trokar buttons. So it's just a little button that's screwed into the hole that the Trokar goes in. And the tissue is thick enough in the abdomen that that screw will set in the tissue to plug that hole. Because as you know, a hole, it's hard to suture unless you do a purse string suture, which means you suture around the hole and pull it tight, and it pulls that hole in and sets it tight. So Trokar button, you just screw in and it holds in that hole. How often do doctors and funeral directors work together with a patient? Not too often. I mean, doctors are not fully always present, whereas the nurses are the ones that are always present, either hospice nurses or nurses in the hospital or wherever. And so it's more going to be the nursing that you may work with and talk to beforehand, but usually it's kind of just the handoff. When they're done with their duty, when the person dies, you go get them and bring them into the care of the funeral home. And there's not a lot of working together except signing the death certificate. Do you know what happens if someone lives longer than their life insurance policy? Do they get the cash value? It depends on the policy. If it terms out, then it's done and it's gone and it's ended. And they keep the money. It's kind of part of the gamble of life insurance. And if you're going to die within the parameters of that policy or not. I'm scared to death of clowns. After a body has been embalmed and buried, is it true as a body breaks down, the acids actually dissolve the bottom of the casket? They do eat away at the interior and such, and then eventually they may eat away depending on the balance, the pH balance may corrode and eat away at some of the interior. I think I missed. Have you ever done family members or do you pass it on to another person? Sorry, Thomas. Thank you, Anna, Kate, Howell. I have. I've done my grandparents and my niece. So, hey, Catherine in the UK. You're so welcome. My uncle died and was brought to the house. The attendant said he was leaking in the neck area. He had artery surgery and died. Do you have any ideas what they're referring to? I would guess that the incision was leaking. Had they embalmed him to bring him to the house? Do you know? Hi, Kari, funeral ambassador here. Is there ever an instance where you can fix floating hands? Thanks from Florida. Yes, gravity works wonders. So if you just lay something on top of those hands overnight, that's what weighted bags, rice bags, people will fill like a bag full of rice and set it so it's not like a flat thing. And it kind of forms to the hands and weights them down. It doesn't take a lot of weight, truly. And you just give it time and those hands will settle down in as low as they can go. And you don't have the floating hands anymore. But you need to do it right after embalming and have them brought down. You're so welcome, Thomas. I don't even know how to pronounce that name. From Germany, hello. Donald, I'm not sure. So unless they were referring to the incision made from the embalming, but maybe he had something that was also leaking, I would think they could have sutured it, or they would have used maybe the same incision for the injecting. I'm not quite sure. My brother died in December. We had him cremated. I want to bury him with my mom and dad. Can they do that? And if so, is it a full price opening and closing for the grave? My brother died in December. Oh, Michael, you've posted the questions a lot about burying him. It's not going to be a full price. So cemeteries usually have a cremation burial price and a casket burial price. So he would be the cremation burial price. And there may be 2 burial prices for cremation. The temporary box that you get back from the crematory or an urn vault. So it depends on the size of the hole that they would have to dig essentially, but there would be an opening and closing price. They may also charge a second interment fee for using the grave space again, depending on what kind of cemetery it is. Is it customary for funeral processions to pass in front of the house of the deceased? Yeah, not customary, unless it's like a small town and stuff, but it will often, if maybe I've done it like country, when we go past the farm or something like that, or if we happen to be going past the family home, sometimes we will. So I'm going to sign off, guys. Thank you so much. So many good questions. So I love these evening ones. You guys are so much chattier, I feel like, sometimes than the morning ones. But thank you, guys. Appreciate you. And I will see you on the next video. Bye.